Hello, and welcome to the Post Talk Podcast, the podcast where we interview post-production professionals in the industry. Today, I am joined with Sara Buxton. She is a color assistant at Goldcrest Post. Sara, in her spare time, works on her own feature films, music videos, and short films, while learning about the role of the colorist at Goldcrest. Today, we will be talking about how the assistant colorist role differs from the senior colorist role, QCing files, the ins and outs of how a post house works, as well as HDR grading. This is Sara Buxton. Hello and welcome to the Post Talk Podcast. Today I'm joined with Sara Buxton. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Just to start off, we ask everybody the same general question. How did you get started as a colorist?
I did a photography degree in Edinburgh, and I kind of just fell into it. When I finished my degree, I wanted to kind of go into post-production. And because my sister went to the National Film and Television School doing cinematography, I applied at the same school to do post-production. And they said, oh, you'll make a really good colorist. So I was just like, okay. So I just kind of like, I just kind of fell into it because I did a photography degree and I was printing in the dark rooms on film, black and white and colour. Mm-hmm. And I knew I wanted to go into some kind of post-production, compositing or colour grading. And then I just kind of just fell into it. I had never really done it before. And yeah, I know it sounds like, I don't know, unplanned. It was a bit unplanned. I didn't expect it, and I just kind of got into it like that.
Interesting. If someone was to start a career in color, how would you say they should go about it?
Go out and take some photographs, probably on film. Get used to printing film. I know you can't colour. It's a bit difficult because the chemicals diminish after time and they're quite expensive. But right. Go and shoot maybe black and white. You can develop it in your bathroom or something and learn about contrast. I mean, colour would be more useful because you learn two of the first things what you do before when you start grading an image. You don't start messing with the colour balance. You get the contrast level right and then you go for the colour, the look of it, because of the colour can change with the contrast. And that's a lesson that you kind of learn in printing photography. And also you get your eye, you start training your eye for the colour cast of an image and you start understanding how that works. And I think if you start understanding about photography and cinematography and lenses and how to create an image and then how to print it, it's a very good foundation. That's how I started. And I think it really helped me technically. That's how I could move into it so easily. From printing, my experience printing photography.
Interesting. Yeah, I make that comparison a lot between like when someone asks, what is this? What are you doing? What is color grading? I just say, think of Photoshop or Lightroom, but for video, Mm-hmm. That's basically what it is. It's now beefed up and it becomes more complicated now because you're dealing with color gamut and calibration and all these other factors that come into play. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is it's like Photoshop, but for video.
Yeah, I always joke to people who don't work in the industry, because my sister says I go on too much technically. I just tell people that I colour in. Yeah, like Instagram, well, I do that kind of professionally and I just colour stuff in as a cheeky response. People just like, okay. So
one of the main things that I did want to talk about today was you're an assistant colorist at Goldcrest Post.
Yes, that's correct.
And so just to kind of help the audience and everyone who's listening, what is the difference between the colorist position versus the assistant colorist position, and how are the duties different?
Well, that's quite a big question, but in my post house, I know in other facilities it's different. They would do the main grade, and when VFX updates come in, I would match them in if they don't match. And if there's anything that I felt that the colorist needed to see, like the sky had changed or something out of the window, something in particular, or you know, if I knew for a fact that they were doing some kind of VFX work, like on a tie, and it was very important, the colour of it, then I'd flag it to them. But I'd have to use my discretion. So I have to work hand in hand with them. But mainly they do the main grade, and then I check VFX that come in, make sure things are okay. Perhaps if it's a VFX heavy film, I might check all the mats are working. I might watch the shot through, cache it. That's some of my duties. When the colorist has done the main DI, sometimes I will do the HDR pass on a project, supervised, of course. They will set the looks, and then I will roll that through, because at our post house, the colorists tend to be quite busy. So to help them manage all the deliverables, I would help them with that, supervised, of course. But it really depends. So is that color assist, or is it blending into junior colorist? Because I'm not doing, you know, my own work. I'm helping them with theirs.
Right.
I would QC files as well.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it's quite important sometimes, especially back in the day when things were just video, you know, Rec 709, 2.4 gamma or whatever. It was a lot simpler, but now you're getting HDR10, Dolby, you can get Rec 2020, P3PQ, you know, all these different renders, and somebody could have made a mistake, you know, instead of, sometimes they'll do the grade in P3PQ, but then it gets rendered in Rec 2020. And if you're not very familiar with how the image should look like and have an instinct to know what the correct image is, and it's actually quite difficult, you know, somebody who's not quite as well trained might let that go through. So now the color assistants at Goldcrest, we do the check-in because we know what it should look like. We're like the colorist eyes. We would sign it off. We would get sent to, obviously they would do the sign off with the client, but we would sign off the deliverables. We'd watch them on behalf of the colorist because we know what it should look like. It just works really well. I think it's very good, because QCing, it might sound like a not very important job, but it's a difficult job. It is a difficult job to get it right, I think. Yeah, so just stuff like that. And also, like, if there's a VFX review, we have a DI theatre, a very large one. So what happens is VFX supervisors would come in and we'd play them the shots. If they want us to do any kind of grading work, we'd do that, you know, to test how the image reacts. Say, for example, if they're doing any kind of rescaling on an image, or if we get some like stock images, because sometimes they'll send you like, I don't know, stock images like drone footage, and we would have to say if it's like kind of good enough to grade, like if there's any kind of artifacts or if there's any kind of weird motion or something like that, how well it holds up in like 4K, and we'd probably decide that. Sometimes we'd do, the colorists obviously grade the feature film, but sometimes they'll use different takes from the film or scenes that were used to be in the film but no longer are, but they made it to the trailer. We'd grade them.
Oh, okay.
We'd obviously follow the looks from the senior colorists, and then we'd grade them. I mean, it's all supervised and stuff. They don't let us like run loose, but I'm not really sure about other post houses, how they do it. Yeah, but we're trusted, you know. They'll trust us to be good at the job, and it, you know, they don't just let you loose. They let you. It takes years to kind of build up into that kind of level of trust.
Whenever you're working on like a bigger scale project, like I know you worked on a good film called American Animals, which was really, really good. I watched that the other day and I was like, oh man, this is such a great film. Especially the look of it, I thought was really nice. When you have something of a bigger scale like that, how do you go about, you know, QCing files or organizing all that? I imagine it can either be a nightmare or it can be, you know, once you get it all nice and neat and organized and prepped, it's just like a smooth sail. How do you go about doing that?
Well, because Goldcrest is a very small company, we have separate departments. So they'll have a conform department and an extraction department. So everything's kind of separated out. So I wouldn't get too involved with the conforming side of it. Yes, I understand that what they do, but my understanding is normally they would extract everything into the same color space. So I don't know, area wide gamut, for example, and you know, and then the conform department would get the drama layer and then have different layers for you know, VFX or something like that. And as the VFX come in, they'll put them onto a new layer, and then we would then compare it to the old version and then sign it off like that. But if it's like, I don't know, a big film like Cats, where you could have like thousands of VFX updates, like you know, eventually the older ones would get weeded out, the older versions, and the plates would stay the same, because you know, you could have like 10 or 12 updates. But I don't really get too involved with like the kind of management of the files. And the deliverables, I mean, I don't know about your post house, but ours, we always be very careful. We never render from the main grade. We never really mess with that. We will duplicate the sessions and then make the renders from that. And also when they're doing different versions of the film, we duplicate they'll do the main DI and then we'll duplicate their sessions. And then they would do a copy from that session. We'll then flip it into Rec 709 or whatever color space they wanted for the deliverable. It depends on the client, what they have asked for.
Right.
And then we do the correct scaling of that project. And then they would just do the trim pass. So like in HDR, they would, you know, go through it and adjust the highlights, but it's more than that sometimes. Sometimes when the kind of look of it, like kind of, you know, the way it feels change. So you have to kind of grade it a bit, you know, or something like that, you know, shift the midtones or whatever, grade it, and then adjust the highlights. So I guess that's, you know, just a normal trim pass.
Yeah, it's more like matching between scenes in a way a little bit. It sounds like, or maybe cooling off highlights, you know, using primaries, things like that. If I'm hearing that correctly.
Yes, and not bringing them down, or reining in the saturation, because sometimes the saturation goes a bit crazy or something like that. You know, making it look like it would the DI. I mean, obviously you get more detail in the sky and things like that in the HDR. It's quite I quite like that format. It's quite beautiful. You know, it can be very pretty for HDR.
I haven't done much in HDR, but I've, you know, seen some examples, and I've, you know, seen a few things here and there, heard a few things here and there, and I'm very eager to try it out. But it's just very expensive. But the main thing I did want to ask you about was when you're matching shots, you're doing that trim pass, right? When you're looking at, let's say, two images to match, because I feel like that it's often overlooked, but it's such an important skill for a colorist to have, is to be able to match shots. Is there like a thought process that your brain sort of thinks about? You're like, okay, first start with contrast, matching that level, matching the midtone levels, you know, and then, okay, now I have to worry about color balance and looking at the scopes, or how does it kind of work, you know, whenever you're trying to match two shots?
Well, it's different in HDR because you have to kind of interpretate it. So it's not like, oh, the brightness of a candle has to be like this, or the brightness of a window has to be like that. It's an interpretation, and you can't use the scopes too much. You can't compare the scopes of the video grade to the ones from HDR, because the HDR is over 100 nits.
Right.
You know, so you wouldn't you can't really, you have to kind of interpretate what they wanted. So you have to have, like, it's more than matching. You kind of have to interpretate the feeling of the image. But if you wanted to know how to match shot to shot, say like if you had a new VFX plate, VFX came in and it didn't match for whatever reason, then you could technically match it on the scopes. You could easily do that, and that would just be a very technical kind of match. If you can match on the scope, then it matches, you know, so that's it. But it's different for, like I said, HDR, because it's an interpretation of what the colorist wanted, and the tone of the film as well. Sometimes HDRs can be like really bright, contrasty. Depends what it is. Or sometimes they might not want that. They might have shot it on film, and they might not have wanted, the colorist might not have wanted a super contrasty kind of HDR grade. So it's
Right.
every single HDR project is different, and it's difficult because it's not something like, it's an artistic process, I would say.
HDR as a whole, right? It's like the new kid on the block. It's no longer, I think, in its early stages. It's the plane has taken off with it, and so it's becoming this thing that a lot of people are starting to grade in. Very, very normal, you know, in like Netflix shows and whatnot. And so, but for the everyday, the young colorists, the guys who are trying to learn, it can be kind of difficult. It's like this VIP section, and we're kind of just like peeking over everyone's shoulder, and we're like, I want to know what that looks like. Would you say for a young colorist, it's important to observe light first, you know, and just get a sense for tuning the eye, and just kind of worry about, you know, the smaller, you know, SDR, you know, portal, I guess you could say, first before jumping the gun into HDR?
I think you should walk before you can run. You just get really good at grading, grade music videos, make them really beautiful, because I've seen some really pretty, beautiful, stunning work on Instagram, and it's, you know, it's incredible. And then it's difficult because it's only just really started to kick off in the last few years. So, you know, I'm very fortunate that I get to peek over the people who are like leading the way. There's no set rules at the moment in how bright a light should be. You know, so I'm kind of peeking over, but and luckily they're kind of like leading the way. But I would say just get really good at grading, get good at understanding an image, working just Rec 709, because that's how I started, and then start moving into the different color spaces, because it's a minefield. So start small, work in Rec 709, and then start understanding what P3 is and XYZ, and then go into that. Start progressing. Don't like overwhelm yourself.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it is difficult doing HDR because of it's subjective, because you can go like really bright, and sometimes, like, you know, you don't want to kind of like blind people or make it like painful, because it can be that bright, it can be quite painful. But you can get a more natural feeling from it. So, for example, if you was to take a photograph of a sky, when you look out at the sky, it's very, very bright. It's the brightest thing because it's lighting everything. But when you take a photograph, it will burn out, it will look dull, it will look flat. Now in HDR, the sky can look really bright and keep the detail in it and keep the colors. And it's very beautiful in that sense. So it is different. But it's an interpretation, I guess, like I said. I don't know, I guess you do need to have an understanding of it. And also it's kind of difficult because of when you're in a post house, when you're moving between Rec 709, P3 and XYZ and HDR, the way our LUTs work as a package, it means that when you flip from Rec 709 to HDR, you know, the color management has been looked after. So you're not getting any kind of weird kind of shifts. I think that you can use the color transform in Resolve, but like our LUTs are designed to, our LUT systems are designed not to do like weird shifts and to help manage that, because of like weird stuff can kind of happen in like HDR. Like you'd grade something and then you'd flip it to HDR and then like it doesn't look like how you graded it. The contrast levels will shift. It could look heavier,
Right.
you know, and the base, the highlights go like really wildly out of control. And it's not just a case of using a log grade and not bringing it down. Sometimes it's like difficult to do that without kind of, you know, smushing the highlights. But you know, you're trying to. It's just difficult. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's we always have to talk about it here on the podcast because it like I was saying, it's like the new kid on the block. It's this thing, and it's so popular. It's hard not to talk about it.
I mean, it is difficult. I mean, like I've done like 3 now for the
Mhm.
on some big films, big British films. I don't know if you heard of them. I did yesterday, and I did David Copperfield. These were supervised, and then I did another one that's not out yet. And everyone's just been different. So I'm not saying I'm a master. I've only done 3, and that was under supervision, and it was difficult because I had to get to going back and forth between the video grade and the senior colorist, and it was a difficult process to kind of get it right, the understanding of it, because it is difficult to do, I think.
Interesting.
Interpret it. Technically, it's not difficult, I guess, because you just kind of move the wheels, but to kind of like get it right and looking right, But I guess it's down to personal taste as well. So
Yeah. Would you say you enjoy being an assist colorist more, or you actually enjoy being in the hot seat and you're doing the big thing, as from like a senior colorist position? What is your end goal?
I mean, this is just from my point of view. I mean, I have graded music videos and feature films myself, and I could probably work on smaller boutique stuff, but I made a choice to go work at a post house and work on big films as an assistant, because from my point of view, like I'm shadowing some of the best colorists in London, and they work on very, very big projects, even internationally. Some very big shows like The Witcher. We've done the second Jurassic World. We worked on Dumbo. We did Kingsman, The Favourite, 3 Ebbings of Billboards, Missouri. All these very big films. So, like, I'm just shadowing pros, leaders in the industry. They're not the leaders. They're amongst, recognised people in the industry. And I'm just happy to sit in and, like, kind of learning from them.
Right.
Because I got given a big feature film to grade, and it's difficult. It's not like grading a music video or an advert. When you're grading a feature film, it's a lot of work, and you have to be really, really, really quick. So, it is a very difficult thing to do, and it's a lot of pressure. It's extremely, when you're working on this kind of level of project with like £100 million budget or £40 million budget or whatever, feature films, that's a lot of money, and they expect to, and they don't always have enough money for the final grade. So it is difficult, and it's a lot of pressure. I mean, I have graded a feature that was nominated for a BAFTA, and I did it, but that was a drama, so that's different. But a massive VFX heavy show is quite a lot to take on. So I'm quite happy at the moment, just kind of like building up my own clients, getting on smaller projects, and as I mature as a colorist and get the experience, and my projects then mature, so I don't know. And also I'm learning, I get to learn of people who've been doing color grading for like 30 years, how they would do a HDR process. So I'm getting like trained up and learning all the time, and I get feedback from them. I can show them my work, and they'll just tell me what they think of it.
Yeah.
They're not rude or anything, but they would just tell me, like, oh, that's nice, but have you thought about this, or have you done that? And like somebody to give you honest criticism about these short films that have like, tiny budgets, to get that kind of feedback on your work and guidance. Like, I have learned, my work has progressed so much, even just assisting and showing them my work and getting feedback all the time and absorbing what they're saying, or looking how they approach stuff, or getting one of their reels and copying it, making a duplication of their reel and putting it into my own project folder, my own database in Resolve, and taking stills, then blowing away their grade and trying to recreate what they did.
Right.
So you can't get better training than that.
No, no.
Regrading their film, taking a copy and then doing a version and then presenting it to them and asking what they think of it.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty ace.
Definitely. I do the same thing as an assist colorist whenever they a spot finishes or whatever. Sometimes I'll be like, can I get a copy of that? Like just to play with it, like myself, and see how you did it, because yeah, you're genuinely curious, you want to like pick someone's brain a little bit, it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I've come across with grading is that I've learned is that there's a million ways to skin a cat, and with let's say a feature, right? And you need a scene, and you need to be fast. There's probably like 500 plus shots going on in one feature, more, so to develop that speed and that level of confidence when going on, and as far as from what like you've seen on these people who've been grading for years and years and years, so I've heard some people say that watching a colorist is like watching a pianist play a piano. It's like kind of crazy. How would you say one should go about developing that, I guess at speed whenever you're handling that, as well as like any tactics, some people like to use group grades, whatever, how do you like to, or what do you think would be a good way to tackle something like that?
A large project.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, normally they're quite experienced as well, and they're just like lightning. Honestly, I've sat in the room with like Adam Glasman, and he's very, very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they all are. Rob Pitsey, Adam Glasman, Jet. They're the ones I've seen grade, and they can grade like an 800 shot. Jet can grade like an 800 shot TV show in like a couple of days. That's really fast.
That is so fast.
She is really, really fast and very, very good. Like, they've been doing it for years, and the way they know the panel, it's just like a muscle memory. But then if you have a catalogue of experience of years of just grading, and I don't know, like a shot is difficult to grade, they just have techniques to overcome that. So when they see something, they can just instinctively go, okay, well, this is what I need to do to kind of get that, to kind of make it work. And I know they do revisions. They said, once you grade something, then to change the look is quite easy. I mean, some of the colorists use group grades. Some of them don't. Mm-hmm. I know. So how they manage it, but they normally use group grades to kind of give a general kind of lift, or, to change the warmth of it slightly. They wouldn't use that to really do a massive change, just to kind of like adjust it, I guess. But also they don't always do. Sometimes they may have to regrade a scene because they work so quickly. They can smash through like maybe a couple a reel a day, maybe more, a couple, if they have to. Mm-hmm. But they can really go through it, and then they'll. To be honest with you, and also, and this is my opinion, if you start a film, a reel, start to finish, and then once you go back to the beginning and watch it through, that's when you're really, really grading, because before that, you're just kind of plowing through the work. Once you've like finished the first pass, the second pass, that's the grade, really, because then you're kind of like taking it in as a whole, as a piece. It's not just grading every shot, so every shot stands alone and looks pretty. Right. It's how it works as a series of images. So for me, when I start watching it back and taking it in, taking the feeling in, that's when you really start kind of making the creative kind of choices, I guess, and kind of taking it in. I mean, it might be different from everyone else, but, right. Stepping back and watching the piece, it's like when you start making these kind of, you start kind of fine-tuning the work. And I think you'll find the difference between somebody who has only just started and like the senior colorists, they notice the tiny details, and it's like the tiny details and how bright things should be and how they look after the blacks and stuff is very kind of important. So
yeah,
but they're really, really quick. Like, honestly, they're just very, very, very quick, and they're just really experienced. Also, like when you're working on, like, you might not necessarily have graded a lot of things with pyros in, or smoke, or muzzle flashes, or something like that. Big effects kind of stuff. and they just have experience. They know a snow is like really difficult to grade.
Right.
No one would think that, but snow is difficult to grade because of it's just white. So even the tiniest bit of like colour in it can make it look a bit green or whatever. And it might not seem difficult, but it is. It's actually quite difficult. And you know, when you first starting out, you might not necessarily, especially like if you're working in England, there's not that much snow in England, even in winter. So low budget short films might not necessarily have access to go, you know, film in snowy mountains or get massive pyro explosions and stuff like that. And how you treat them, that is down to experience. And then you can add it to the catalogue of your experience of the things you've done. So, yeah.
Nice.
You know, because of like, you know, when you're doing muzzle flashes, they always look kind of flat and boring, so you have to key them to brighten them up. But fire, it looks, you know, you have to kind of make it like have guts or, you know, something like that. So it's about experience dealing with them kind of things. And that's why you pay a lot of money, because you're not paying for somebody who is good at grading, you're also paying for somebody who's very quick and very experienced. That's why you're just paying for that experience. And if some things, it's not all the land of milk and honey. Some films are like very difficult because, you know, big action films, they don't just film it all in one day. It could be filmed over weeks. Different days, sun in and out. Sometimes you have to go back and reshoot. Even the best films, they're not God. They can't control the weather, the light, you know, how things are. You know, you can't, if it's sunny one day and overcast the next, the shadow, you know, it's going to be different. And they have to kind of work through that and match up as best they can. And it's really difficult, really difficult. So
how, as the human eye, you know, as humans, we're very flawed, and we look at an image for too long, we'll start to sort of like, I guess as someone told me it once, it's like your eyes will shift the colors if you look at an image for too long. It'll try to make sense of what you're looking at, and you have to always take breaks, get up, walk away from the screen, come back to it, and then it looks different when you come back to it, or however, and have that challenge of like, okay, what am I really looking at here? Can I trust my own eyes?
Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Some of it's difficult, then you just have to like, oh, we'll come back to that, you know, and like have a break from it and then work on something else. I mean, I think they do that. I do that for sure.
Earlier you were mentioning how whenever you are, as a colorist, they're looking at it and to take it in then like baby steps, you know. I guess the rule of thumb would be to balance first, stylize later, I think is how you would describe that, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yeah, I mean, like this is how I mean, that's how I got taught at the NFTS, the National Film and Television School. We just got taught how to balance an image, how to deal with technical issues, like if it had a blue color cast, and start knowing when it's good enough, because of it's really, and this is what sometimes these videos on YouTube I don't think are always that good. Some of them are, don't get me wrong, you know, if you want to learn how to technically do something, but you actually are, I think, more mature work is looking at something and knowing that's good enough. You know, you only have to adjust it. The need to stamp all over it and grade it and give it a heavy look, because so you feel that you must do that, it's a hard thing to do, and it's an instinct. And I think it comes with like maturity in handling images. So, you know, it's knowing when to have restraint in an image, and it's mature kind of grading, I think, and experience. Don't just like go, I'm a colorist, I need to change the grade, I need to give it a really strong look.
Yeah.
You just need to have like confidence in knowing like when's enough's enough. Because of like if you're grading like a feature film, a lot of the colorists kind of keep it simple. They won't do like lots of parallel nodes, and they won't have like, you know, I mean, some of these big feature films they do, like you see them, it's like a node tree of like 30 maps. But that's but yeah, generally like they just kind of keep it simple. Like they obviously use like power windows and, you know, normal primary grades and, you know, a bit of keying and stuff like that, but it's nothing like too fancy, you know. They just kind of kind of keep it simple. Because if you're like messing around with like saturation levels and things like that, using saturation to grade a shot, like it's like the worst thing you could do ever. Like never ever ever do that. Like if the senior colorists at my work catching you do that, they'll be like, don't use the saturation levels to like grade it. I mean, there's obviously exceptions to the rule where sometimes you have to kind of boost the saturation of a shot, but like you have to really use it at your discretion. You can't just like willy-nilly like, oh, that shot's got a color cast, I'll just turn down the saturation. I mean, you can do saturation in certain colors if you want, like you're grading a scene in a desert and you want the sand to be like more, you know, whatever, richer or something, or you want the sky to be bluer, then of course. Yeah, so the point being that they tend to do it fairly simply. I mean, they obviously know how to technically do this kind of stuff, but they're just, I don't know. I think it's good learning from them. You do need to learn restraint as a colorist, and you know, knowing when to enhance something and how to do it. I think that just comes down to experience, though, I guess.
No, definitely. So now we're reaching towards the end here. So you're part of the CSI, Color Society International. Can you kind of touch base about what that is and who they are and all that kind of cool stuff?
Well, it's just an organisation. Like, I think it's kind of like the BSC. I've only just joined, but they have, you know, forums that you can go on and like look up information and ask things, and they also have like a database of colorists. But I think you do have to have some kind of a bit of pedigree to kind of go onto it. I think you have to be working professionally for like 3 years to kind of to get into that membership. I've literally only just joined, so I like in the last few weeks. So I joined and I haven't yet to kind of like I thought it sounds interesting, and you know what people said about it. I thought I would just go on and kind of like go through it and like kind of work it out. But I think it's kind of good because of also I think it's kind of good to kind of get a bit of a accreditation, I guess. And the forums and newsletters sound quite interesting. I haven't yet been on them, so I just thought, and also just to connect with other colorists and look at their work, because I think that looking at other colorists' work is very important.
Right.
Looking at your peers, you know, there's some very beautiful work that they post. There's some very, very talented colorists, and I think it's good because some people inspire my own work. But yes, I got on it because of graded stuff before I came to Goldcrest. I graded a couple of feature films that have been on like Amazon and like Netflix and been distributed, and I've graded stuff whilst at Goldcrest that has gone on to Netflix and Amazon. So that's how I got in. But it's very new, so I hope that I can use it as a learning tool and like learn from other people by going on the forums and looking at the information that they have out. But I guess to be a colorist, you constantly have to be kind of researching and looking at new techniques and looking at cinematographers' work, and you know, get a copy of the American Cinematographer or the British Cinematographer magazine and like reading about it, and you know, looking at art, looking at pictures, looking at photography.
Right.
You know, you kind of have to immerse yourself and looking at the new things that are coming out. You know, I even follow other post houses on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I like looking at their work, you know, seeing like what's about.
That's something I do myself. Is a friend of mine. We were just having a normal. He's a colorist as well, and we were just having a normal conversation. Someone had sent in a group chat. They sent something they colored, and they said, "Oh, that looks like something that a cheat would do," which is another post house, you know. And the fact that he saw an image and just thought that it looks like something a different post house would do, I thought, oh wow, that means he's taking time to study the other people's work, you know, and recognize it. I was like, that's nice. That's good thinking. I didn't think to do that, you know. So I like that.
Yeah, they do some nice work. I've seen they post some very nice work, Cheat. Well, so do like Company 3 and, you know, other colorists as well. Colorist and Technicolor, I follow them on Instagram.
Right.
You know, but I think it's just nice to kind of like look at what's around you and like look at art and, you know, follow all the post houses and stuff like that. And, you know, and also people like, you know, you will, over your career, you might move around these different kind of post houses and stuff, you know, to progress, or, you know, an opening might open up. So I don't know where I'll be in the future. I mean, I hope I'd stay at Goldcrest, because of Goldcrest are really supportive. Honestly, I can't say enough about them. Like, they let me do my own work. They don't have to let me use the facilities. They're very supportive. They let me grade that big feature film. They let me bring my own work in. It's not as paid as well as theirs. It's like small fry kind of stuff, but they allow me to do it, to build up my own client base. They don't have to do that. They could just say, I could, you know, just do your own assisting kind of job, but they're kind of very supportive, and they're very supportive of new filmmakers that are coming through. So I really like it. I think it's a very good company to be at the moment. It's growing bigger with this 5 colorists there. It started as 2. They started a VFX department. They're starting a sound department. Mm-hmm. It's really growing. So in like 10 years' time, I don't even know how big it is, but it's growing very fast. And, you know, it's very supportive of new colorists, and they're very kind. And especially through the pandemic as well, everybody kept their job. They made sure that they furloughed people. They didn't have to. They could have made people redundant, I guess. Right. But it really shows you how they treated everybody during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Nobody lost their jobs. They could have got rid of me because of, you know, my job is, I don't do rendering, and my job is like working with clients when they come in. And if they're not coming in, and I'm not the senior colorist, they could have easily got rid of me, or like made me redundant and got me back when the work started coming in. But they didn't. They took a massive punch to their finances, and they kept together as a unit. So I don't know, it's very, very telling how what a company are like and their core values. So I think I'm going to be sticking around with Goldcrest.
Absolutely. That sounds great. Do you have any advice for young colorists or people who are colorists trying to, you know, make it into the industry? Do you have any advice, any tips, anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, I just take it easy, you know, enjoy the ride, because of when you get to that big seat, it might not be so, you know, it might be very stressful. So just work on it, just take and absorb what people are doing around you, learn from your peers, learn from the senior colorists, look at what other people are doing, take it easy. Don't get so stressed out about why I haven't progressed, because if you're working at a big post house, it's going to take you years to work up anyway. Just take it easy and enjoy the ride. And yeah, so that's it. Try and grade as much stuff as you can. You know, they say it's 10,000 hours to become a master at something. Like, you need to get them 10,000 hours. I grade anything. If it looks good, I'll grade it. Because I'm a bit of a hoarder of pretty images. So like, if something looks pretty, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So I guess I've got a slight hoarding tendency of that, because I like pretty things. Just grade as much as you can and just take it easy, I guess.
No,
yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult, you know, because you have to get like clients in, you have to get regular work. It's whether them clients, it's a business at the end of the day. So you can grade pretty things, but also you need to make a living. So.
Yeah. Someone once told me you can put the 10,000 hours in, but it's not necessarily about how many hours you put in. It's about how you put the hours in, you know?
Oh, yes. I always look at my work and how I'd improve it. And then I do look at like other post houses like Cheat and Company 3 and Technicolor and the senior colorists at my work, and I look at how they did it, and I you know, try and study how they made it like that, and really kind of pay attention to like the finer details. You know, yeah. So yeah, you can't just like you do have to, and I think hopefully looking back on my work, I feel that my work has improved over the years, definitely, for sure. So hopefully I'm not squandering that 10,000 hours. I don't know, maybe you'll 10 years time, like, who's that Sara Buxton? Like, who the hell is she?
Well, hey, Sarah, your work is amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me on here. This has been a very, very wonderful conversation. I think many people are going to listen to this and take a lot away from it. So, yeah.
I hope so. I just felt like I've just rambled.
No, it's good stuff. It's always fun to talk color. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.